So have any of you guys ever wondered why John Cox is always throwing really little hooks when he's wacky rigging or throwing a Senko? Well, today I'm going to break down exactly why he throws that hook and some of the other tips and techniques that I break down on kind of a forgotten art when it comes to Senko or stickbait fishing. So stick around, this is going to be a video you guys don't want to miss. So we'll get right to the juicy stuff first. I'm throwing a 2/0, or actually this is a size 2 Trokar TK 150, and it's a drop shot hook. It's not even actually like a Nico rig or like a stereotypical Senko hook that everybody talks about. Now I'm going to use the word Senko. I know people are going to crucify me, but we're talking about all stick baits here. I just like calling them Senkos because that's what Yamamoto dubbed the first one, right? So why does John Cox throw such a small hook? And the reason is not for leverage, not for a more natural presentation where all of those help. What it is when a fish eats a Senko, a lot of times it gets turned around in its mouth, the hook specifically. And if you're using a long shank hook like we have here, sure, it might work okay with big largemouth, but if you're catching smallmouth, spotted bass, or even smaller largemouth, what happens is the way that fish eats it, if it eats it with the hook down its throat instead of facing back out, that hook has to turn 180 degrees before that hook point actually does anything. And so with a long shank hook, it takes a lot longer and more room for that hook to turn around. So you think about if that fish has it like this, by the time that hook turns all the way around, if you have a long shank hook on, it's going to pull right out of its mouth, or you're going to skin hook it. So a shorter shank hook has more time to turn around in that fish's mouth, and it actually hooks those fish faster and better than a long shank hook typically would. And I'm not saying don't throw a long shank hook. If you're fishing for, giant largemouth, sure. Most oftentimes it doesn't matter. But when you're throwing a Senko or something like that, a lot of times it does matter if you're catching 2, 3, and less pounders. Especially we're on spotted bass fisheries here, so it makes a really big difference. And I noticed an insane hookup ratio difference when I went down to a number 2 instead of a 1/0 Nico rig hook. So that's the first tip that I want to talk about. And I also alluded to some rigging techniques, which is what I want to talk about now. And so one thing that I do want to talk about real quick is to use an O-ring or not. Because if you watch John Cox on Bass Live, you know he never uses an O-ring. Hates using an O-ring. And that's all well and good because the dude gets free Berkeley Generals out the wazoo, right? But what's the benefit of using an O-ring? And I have a Yamamoto Senko rigged up right here. The benefit of using an O-ring is that when a fish eats it, instead of it trashing it and you losing it, it's going to slide right up your line, just like so. And then you can kind of pull it back down and reuse it. The downfall is when a fish eat a Senko, they eat it, like this, sideways, right? A lot of times they don't eat it, lengthwise, they eat it like this. And so now your hook is parallel with that. And so that hook point is going to come straight out. If a fish's mouth is like this, it's going to come straight out instead of straight up. So that's the one downfall of it. Your hookup ratios are going to kind of suffer, but that's why I recommend using that reel set, because it'll give it time to turn in that fish's mouth and actually get onto some meat, versus if you throw it and set the hook and jack it, that's how you're going to lose those fish. So if you're a guy that really likes to jack those fish and doesn't reel set, I recommend parallel or perpendicular hooking it and not using an O-ring, or using 2 O-rings and crossing them, or using some of the saddles that they have out nowadays where you can actually do that. But a lot of times, let's face it, you guys don't have them in the boat. Half the time I don't have them in the boat. So bite the bullet, perpendicular rig it without an O-ring, so that way you can get a better hookup ratio. But if you're a guy that likes to reel set it, just put it in there and you'll be fine. So everybody likes to throw it when it's up shallow, but once you get out, say deeper than 5 feet, it's like everybody forgets that a Senko even exists. But that couldn't be further from the truth. As Justin Lucas called it, the rig. If you go on Bass University, you can check out, he does an entire video on the rig, as he calls the Nico rig. A Nico rig can actually make it so you can catch suspended fish, or catch those pesky fish that don't want to eat out a little bit deeper. Say fish suspended over brush, but they're in 15 feet of water where everybody goes, I'm not going to throw a wacky rig, it's going to take 8 years to get down there. Well, if you Nico rig that bait, you can actually get it down to those fish in an ample amount of time. And I'll have a bunch of my favorite Nico rigging weights and hooks down below, so that way you guys can have access to it, especially with the gear that I'm going to talk about here at the end. But a Nico rig does a great job at being able to throw it out watch that bait go down and get down to some of those deeper fish in a better manner. You know, we all wonder why guys like Brett Hite and Justin Lucas and all these guys throw a Nico rig in like 40 feet of water at some of these spotted bass fisheries or even for deeper largemouth. And the reason is because fish still freaking eat a Senko. Whether you're in 2 feet of water or whether you're in 100 feet of water, they're still gonna eat the fire out of that bait. And what a Nico rig has is they still get that good fall where that bait's still kind of shimmying and spiraling down there, but then you get that presentation on the bottom where that Nico rig stands up and you can kind of twitch it. You know, if you put a 32nd ounce in there, you would be surprised how fast and how quickly you can get a worm down there, especially if you put a 16th ounce in there. You can get it down to 20 feet in like less than 10 seconds. Like, it's actually pretty shocking how fast it'll actually sink. So please don't forget about that. Try it on some of your clear water fisheries and you won't be disappointed. Now, as far as the gear that I like to throw this on, I like to throw it on a 7.6 medium light. This is an Arc Essence, and I like that 7.6 because I can cast it a lot further. And the biggest thing is when you get a bite on this, don't set the hook, especially if you're fishing a little bit deeper. Do a nice reel set. Reel and lean on those fish and you're gonna catch almost every one of them. And I like a 10-pound fluorocarbon. This is a Cortland Leader. That's a new company that I'm gonna work with again. Cortland is one of the best companies out there in my opinion. I've known those guys since I was 12 years old and they're really helping me out this year. So I'll have a bunch of their stuff linked down below if you guys wanna check out some sweet line. Definitely give that a go. I like a 10-pound Cortland braided line as far as my main line goes, and then I like a 3000 size reel for that. I use a Shimano Stratic. Still waiting to get my hands on some of the new arc spinning reels. That's a new thing that's just come out. They released it at ICAST, but they're just getting production finalized, so when I get those, I'll let you guys know how they are. But again, throw those Senkos, throw those stick baits out over some open water and Nico rig them, and you will be surprised at the number of bites you get. And if you like today's video, check out this video I have linked up here where I break down drop shot fishing and everything you need to know about that. I think that's a really cool topic that you guys are going to really like this to go hand in hand with this. So be sure to check that out. Hit that subscribe button to follow on with the content. But God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.